Dust spiraled upward in ragged circles, carried by the dry breath of the canyon wind. At the edge of Devil's Bluff, a lone figure stood, backlit by the sinking sun that turned the sky to fire. Her dress was torn at the shoulder. Blood from a cut above her eyebrow matted her auburn hair. Evelyn James didn't cry. Not now. Not in front of him. Sheriff Elijah McGraw, polished silver star pinned to his black duster, tightened the grip on his revolver. His boots scraped against the gravel as he took a step forward. Behind him stood two of his deputies, silent and watchful. Like vultures waiting for the last breath. You should have said yes, McGraw said, his voice flat, not cruel. Like he was commenting on the weather. Evelyn didn't flinch. Her heart pounded like war drums in her chest, but her chin remained high. And you should have stayed out of my life. You don't get it, girl, he replied, stepping closer until the barrel of the gun hovered just inches from her ribs. You belong to me. That's the way it works. Your daddy's gone. Your land needs a man. You ain't got choices. She laughed, bitter and sharp. You think I'd marry a snake like you? I'd rather die. McGraw tilted his head. His finger tapped the trigger once, twice. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of juniper and dry blood. Suit yourself. She didn't scream when he shoved her. The world tilted. The ledge crumbled beneath her heels. For a split second, she hung in the space between sky and earth, the sun a blinding halo behind McGraw's silhouette. Then she fell. The canyon walls rushed up to meet her. Her body clipped a jagged outcrop. An explosion of pain cracked through her ribs. She bounced once, then hit a narrow ledge with a sickening thud. Darkness swallowed her vision. The men above peered. Over. McGraw's lips curled, satisfied. A damn shame, he muttered. Get the horses. We've got to spread the story. He spat into the wind. Fell on her own, poor thing. When they were gone, the canyon settled into silence. Ravens circled. High overhead. Evelyn opened one eye. Her breath came in ragged bursts. Every rib ached. Her ankle screamed. One boot was missing. Blood dripped steadily from her scalp. But she was alive. She tried to sit up and gasped, the motion slicing through. Her chest like broken glass. She dragged herself into the shadow of the wall, hiding her body behind a boulder. The sky overhead burned orange, then purple. Dusk. She didn't know how far she'd fallen, or how far she still had to go. The sheriff thought she was dead. Let him. Her fingers brushed the cool stone wall as she steadied herself. She knew this canyon barely. Her father had brought her hunting here, once years ago. Back when life was simple, before debtors. Before men started looking at her not like a woman, but like a prize to be claimed. A sound echoed far below hoofbeats. Slow, steady. Her pulse quickened. Maybe a traveler. Maybe someone who could help. But her voice barely functioned. Help, she rasped, the word cracking in her throat. The rider didn't hear. She dragged herself across the ledge, pain flaring through every limb. Her fingernails chipped as she clawed at the rocks. Then she saw him, a lone man leading a stubborn mule along the canyon floor. Tall, broad shoulders beneath a worn coat, a wide hat low over his brow. His steps were careful, as though he knew every inch of the land and didn't trust a damn thing about it. She coughed, blood flecking her lips. Help me, she whispered again. The man paused. Cole Whitaker had seen a lot in his 32 years. He'd seen men bleed out over poker games, and women bury their children with no more than a wooden cross. But what caught his eye now wasn't death. It was defiance. High above, on a ledge barely wide enough for a hawk to land, he saw movement. A pale hand against stone, then a face bloodied, bruised, but watching him with the steady gaze of someone who hadn't given up yet. He didn't shout. just tied his mule to a tree and began climbing. The cliffside was unforgiving, the rocks brittle beneath his boots. But he moved like someone used to danger, someone who didn't question whether the risk was worth it. By the time he reached her, she'd passed out again. He stared at her for a long minute. She couldn't have been more than 18. Maybe 19, face swollen, dress ripped, no weapons, no gear, just blood and silence. Then she breathed. Cole scooped her into his arms. "Damn fool girl," he muttered, half to himself, and began the slow, perilous descent. By the time he reached his camp, night had swallowed the canyon. Coyotes howled in the distance. The fire he built was small, discreet. He laid her down gently and examined her injuries: broken ribs, sprained ankle, bruised spine. Nothing fatal, if infection didn't set in. She woke to the sound of stew boiling in a tin pot and the scent of whiskey. "You ain't dead," he said gruffly, without turning. She tried to speak, but her mouth was dry. He handed her a canteen. She drank slowly, then choked. "Easy?" he said. "Where?" She managed. "Bottom of the canyon. Lucky bounce." Her throat hurt when she laughed. "Some luck." He glanced at her, finally. His face was sun-darkened, eyes steel gray beneath the brim of his hat. Not handsome, not unkind. "Name's Cole," he said. "Don't ask me for anything else yet." "Evelyn." He nodded once. "Got a reason someone tried to kill you?" She stared at the fire for a long moment. "You ever heard of Sheriff McGraw?" Cole's jaw clenched. "Everyone's heard of him." "He asked me to marry him," she said quietly. "I said no." "That's all it took?" "He wants my land." Cole didn't speak. He handed her a cup of soup, warm and salty. She sipped it slowly. Her fingers shook in the dark. A branch snapped. Cole reached for his rifle instantly, standing between her and the noise. Nothing came. He didn't lower the weapon until the moon was high, and the silence had held for hours. Evelyn lay in the dirt, staring at the stars. She wasn't sure what hurt more, her body, or the realization that no one in town would come looking for her. The sheriff's word was law, and law didn't care about girls who said no. Cole sat across from her, whittling a piece of wood. His movements were steady, efficient. "Why'd you help me?" she asked. He didn't answer at first. Then, "Because someone didn't help my wife." She waited. When nothing more came, she let it go. In the morning, she tried to stand and screamed. Cole caught her before she collapsed. "You're not going anywhere," he said. "I can't stay here." "You think I want you here?" he snapped. "But I also ain't dragging your half-dead body through the desert just so McGraw can finish the job." She lowered her gaze. "Sorry." Cole softened. "Rest. We'll figure something out." They wind shifted, carrying the distant sound of horses multiple, maybe 5 or 6. They both froze. "They're looking for you," he said. "I need to leave," she whispered. "They'll kill you too." Cole grabbed his rifle. "Let M. try." Evelyn tried to rise again, trembling. Cole caught her elbow. "You stay put," he growled. "I didn't carry you up a cliff so you could go get yourself murdered." She locked eyes with him. "I'm not your responsibility." Too late. A sound of the riders faded into the canyon. They hadn't found the camp yet. Cole didn't. Sleep that night. He kept watch, rifle across his lap. Evelyn lay curled beside the fire, breathing shallow but steady. In the hours before dawn, she opened her eyes and whispered, "Thank you." He didn't turn around, but he said quietly, "Don't thank me yet." The canyon was no place for mercy. And yet somehow, here in the shadow of Devil's Bluff, mercy had clawed its way into the dust. They didn't know it yet, but that was the beginning of everything. The morning sun crept across the canyon like a predator, golden light slipping into cracks, and spilling over rock. Evelyn woke to its heat, pressing against her bruised cheek. Her body felt stiff, each breath a battle against cracked ribs. She blinked up at the sky. The fire burned down to ash beside her, and the man called Cole was gone. Panic crawled over her before she even lifted her head. The last thing she remembered was the steady crackle of flames, the scent of stew, and the end. Low grumble of his voice warning her to stay put. Now the camp was quiet, the only sound the chirp of cicadas and the distant rustle of something moving through brush. She sat up with a grunt, clutching her side. Her ankle throbbed like a war drum, and her lips felt like dry leather. The canteen lay beside her. She grabbed it greedily, wincing at the movement. Every muscle protested. She didn't care. She drank. A rustle closer this time. Her eyes darted to the rifle, leaning against a boulder. She scrambled toward it, teeth gritted, breath ragged. Her fingers were just wrapping around the barrel when a voice stopped her cold. "You plan on shooting me for bringing back breakfast?" Cole emerged from behind a low rise, his arms full of dry wood and something wrapped in cloth. His hat was dusted with sweat and dirt, eyes cool beneath the brim. She slumped in relief, but didn't let go of the rifle. He noticed. He didn't seem offended. "You handle one of those?" He asked. "My father taught me." "You hit anything?" She looked him in the eye. "I hit what I need to." He gave a small nod. "Good." He dropped the wood beside the pit and unwrapped the cloth. Inside were 2 small quail, already cleaned. "I can cook," she offered. "You can sit," he countered, skewering the birds and propping them over the rekindled fire. She watched him work. There was precision in his movements, not just from habit, but from experience. This was a man who'd lived too long on the edge of things, edges of town, law, life. She recognized that kind of silence. It was the same one she'd wrapped herself in the night after her mother died. "Why are you out here alone?" she asked after a while. He didn't answer immediately, just turned the birds and stared into the flames. "Because people don't get close to things they can't fix." She absorbed that quietly. Then, "And you think I can't be fixed?" He met her gaze. "Didn't say that. Just don't know if you want to be." The quail finished cooking in silence. When he handed her one, it was still steaming, the skin crisp and salty. She ate with the slow intensity of someone who didn't know when the next meal might come. By the time the bones were picked clean, Evelyn sat straighter. Her bruises still pulsed, but the haze was lifting. She could think again. "I have to go back," she said. Cole raised a brow. "You what?" "To town. To Pine Rock." He sat back on his heels. "That's suicide. You think McGraw's going to just stand there and let you walk in alive? He'll bury you before the church bell rings." She didn't flinch. "I can't run." He studied her for a long moment, then looked away. "You got anyone left in that town?" "My mama's buried on the North Hill. My horse is probably sold. The rest didn't care enough to stop what happened. And yet you're marching back in." "I won't hide while that bastard struts around like a hero." Cole's jaw worked tight. He stood, grabbed a canteen, and poured water into a cracked tin basin. Then he pulled a rough bar of soap from a pack and dropped it beside her. "You smell like roadkill and gunpowder," he said. "Clean up. You're not going anywhere looking like death." She stared at the items, then back at him. "So you're helping me?" He didn't answer directly. "You'll stay here. A few days. Heal enough to walk. Then we talk. I don't need your permission." "You're right," he said, crouching to meet her eyes. "You need your strength and a plan. Because walking into town swinging's just gonna get you dead." The fire crackled between them. Evelyn didn't reply. She just reached for the soap. The next 3 days passed in slow motion. Mornings were cold and sharp, evenings dry and endless. Cole spoke little, but his actions made a kind of conversation. He built her a crutch from a tree branch, wrapped her ankle with cloth torn from his own shirt, even caught a wild chicken. With his bare hands. He didn't ask her about the cliff again. She didn't offer more than he needed. But one night, as the stars bloomed overhead and the canyon cooled into a gentle hush, he said, "You jumped, didn't you?" She looked up from the fire. "He pushed me." "I know. But you didn't beg. You didn't plead." She didn't respond for a while. Then, softly, "I was never going to give him what he wanted. Not even to live." He nodded once. Not with pity, just understanding. The fourth morning, she stood without falling. She gritted her teeth against the pain and walked 4 paces from the camp. When Cole looked up, she was leaning on her crutch with her jaw tight and her eyes wild. He whistled low. "Tougher than I gave you credit for. I'm not done." Yet, that afternoon, they sat on a flat stone overlooking the canyon floor. Cole handed her a rifle. She tested its weight. It was heavier than her father's. Older, too. "Safety's a little sticky," he said. "Compensate for wind." She glanced at the tin can he'd set 50 feet away. "First time shooting since the cliff?" She didn't answer. Just lifted the rifle, aimed, and fired. The can flew back into the dirt with a metallic thud. Cole gave a low whistle. "All right, then." Evelyn lowered the gun. Her hands were steady now. Her eyes focused. That night, over rabbit stew, she asked, "Why'd you leave town, really?" He didn't look up. "Too many graves. Too many ghosts." "Wife?" He nodded once. "Her name was Lila. Fever got her. Doc had the medicine. Wouldn't trade unless I paid double. I didn't have it. And McGraw? He owned the doc's debt, controlled the road. Let my wife die slow." Evelyn's spoon froze in midair. "I buried her myself," he added. She put the spoon down. "Then why are you hiding out here instead of burning that place down?" He looked at her, eyes dark. "Because I was already burning. Just didn't want to spread the fire." She understood. By the 6th day, her limp had faded into a manageable hobble. She could reload the rifle without flinching. She'd practiced skinning, cooking, moving silent through brush. Cole tested her every step. "You want to go back," he said one morning. "You don't go in loud. You go in smart, quiet. Find proof. Find something McGraw can't bury." "What about the people?" "They'll believe what's in front of them. I want to show them what he is." Cole handed her a small satchel. Inside were maps, papers, and a folded scrap of linen. "What's this?" "A ledger page. Stole it months ago. Didn't know if it mattered." Evelyn studied the numbers, the initials, land claims, transactions, bribes, names of girls. Her name wasn't on it, but others were. Her hands tightened. "We can bury him with this." Cole didn't smile, but his voice carried weight. "Then let's dig." They packed light. By twilight, they were riding a narrow trail that curved above the canyon. Cole led the mule. Evelyn clutched the saddle with white knuckles, pain blooming with every step. Below them, the town waited flickering lamps, the sound of piano from the saloon, dogs barking at shadows. She thought of the churchyard where her mother slept, of her father's old revolver, probably rusting in a pawnshop window, of the way McGraw's hand felt on her arm before he shoved her into the air like garbage. She touched her side where the bruise still bloomed. Then she looked ahead, toward the glow of the town. "You ready?" Cole asked. She didn't hesitate. "Yes." The canyon behind them whispered farewell. But Evelyn James didn't look back, because fire had found her again, and this time she would carry it into the dark. The moon rose over Pine Rock like a silent witness, casting its cold light across roofs and dusty windows, exposing the town in all its slumbering indifference. From the cover of a rocky ridge, Evelyn James watched the place she used to call home, the place that had looked the other way when a sheriff became a predator. Her breath caught at the sight of it, not from fear, but from rage held in too long. Cole knelt beside her, scanning the town through a spyglass. Stables quiet. Saloons lit. Sheriff's office still has 2 guards on the porch. Might be others inside. She nodded, eyes narrowed. He won't expect me. He thinks I'm still rotting at the bottom of that cliff. Let's keep it that way. They moved like shadows, slipping between mesquite trees and under broken fences, every step calculated. Evelyn's ribs still ached, and her ankle protested with each stride, but she didn't falter. She had no time left for weakness. They reached the rear of the sheriff's office, where the shadows ran thick and the air reeked of coal oil. Cole handed her a knife. "In case I'm wrong," he said quietly. "You usually wrong?" "I try not to be." She took the blade, tucked it into her boot, and hoisted herself up to the window. The latch was still broken. Cole had broken it weeks ago, back when he still thought revenge was a mistake. Now he was back, and revenge wore a girl's name. The office inside was dimly lit by a lantern hanging from a nail. A desk sagged under. Stacks of paper and half-empty bottles. Evelyn dropped silently onto the floor, crouched low, eyes scanning every corner. No movement, no breathing but her own. She moved to the filing cabinet and pulled out drawer after drawer, her fingers shaking. Not from fear, but from hope. She needed something that couldn't be denied. Something the town couldn't ignore. The third drawer held it. A red ledger. She flipped through page after page of forged land grants, bribes signed by trembling hands, and most damning names. Names of young girls paid for, traded, promised. Her stomach turned as she saw initials beside each one, dates and sums. Some had red X's beside them. Her name wasn't there. But 2 girls from the outskirts were. And one she remembered from church, a girl who vanished last winter and was never spoken of again. She slipped the ledger into her satchel, heart-pounding dot. Then the floor creaked behind her. She spun, hand going to the knife, but it was too late. Sheriff McGraw stood in the doorway, gun aimed, smile wide and hollow. Well, if it ain't the dead girl." Evelyn didn't move. Her fingers twitched near her boot. "You're a damn ghost," he muttered, stepping inside and shutting the door. "I buried you. The canyon buried you." "You tried," she said, steady. "You think coming back changes anything?" He sneered. "You think that book matters? You think these people care? They want their peace. You stir up trouble, they'll watch you hang for it. I'll take that chance." McGraw moved faster than she expected. His hand lashed out, striking her across the face. She hit the desk hard, lip splitting on the corner. The room tilted. Pain shot down her spine. The ledger slipped from her hand. "I gave you a choice," he growled, stepping over her. "You said no, so now you stay gone. Permanent." The door burst open with a thundercrack. Cole's rifle spoke once, then twice. One bullet clipped McGraw's shoulder, spinning him. The second shattered the lantern, plunging the room into smoke and shadows. Glass shattered. Flames licked the floorboards. Evelyn scrambled for the ledger, grabbed it, and ducked under the desk as McGraw fired blindly. Cole shouted her name, his silhouette framed in firelight. She rolled toward him just as McGraw's boot came down hard, crushing her hand. She screamed, dropped the ledger again. McGraw grabbed her by the hair, yanked her upright. "You never should have come back." Then Cole was there. The men crashed into each other like thunderclouds. Fists, elbows, knees, no time for weapons. Just fury. Evelyn crawled through the broken glass and smoke, one hand clutching her bleeding scalp, the other searching for the knife. She found it. When she looked up, McGraw had Cole pinned against the wall, hands on his throat. Cole's face was darkening, his hands slipping. Evelyn launched forward, knife flashing. She didn't scream. She didn't warn him. She buried the blade in McGraw's thigh. The sheriff roared and dropped Cole, stumbling back. Evelyn ripped the knife free, eyes wild. "You want me dead?" She spat. "Try harder." McGraw swung at her, but Cole tackled him again, this time grabbing the gun from the floor. They both rolled through the broken doorway, out into the night. The noise had drawn attention. Doors opened, boots pounded on wood, and faces appeared in windows. The saloon emptied, a dozen half-drunk men running toward the sheriff's office. Evelyn staggered to her feet, blood blurring her vision. She grabbed the ledger and limped outside. Cole was on the ground, blood on his lip, the gun trained on McGraw, who knelt in the dirt, breathing hard. "Go ahead," McGraw snarled. "Shoot me. That's what this is, ain't it?" One more outlaw. Pretending to play hero, Cole's hand didn't waver. "You murdered girls, sold land that wasn't yours, killed my wife, and you almost killed her. And you think anyone'll care?" McGraw spat into the dirt. "You think Pine Rock's gonna throw a parade for your little ghost girl here?" Evelyn stepped forward. "No, but they'll care about this." She raised the ledger. McGraw's face changed, just for a moment. Real fear. People gathered around them, confused murmurs rippling. A preacher, the general store owner, a few of the mayor's boys, a couple women from the saloon, their faces pale. "This book," Evelyn said, voice cracking but fierce, "has names. Of girls, land, money, McGraw's deals, everything." "Don't listen to her," McGraw barked. "She's crazy. She fell. Hit her head." "Look at her," Cole said. "Does she look like someone lying?" Someone stepped forward. Mrs. Finch, the preacher's wife. "My niece vanished last fall," she whispered. "No one did anything." Another man spoke. "Sheriff told me my grazing rights were revoked. Said it was a mistake." Voices swelled. Doubts became fear. Fear turned to anger. McGraw stood, raising his hands. "Don't let her poison your minds. She's got you chasing ghosts." Cole stepped beside Evelyn. "You made her a ghost. She came back anyway." The preacher took the ledger. His fingers trembled as he read, page after page. His face turned pale. He looked at McGraw, eyes wide. "I think we need to talk to the judge." McGraw's hand moved toward his belt. 3 rifles clicked at once. He froze. The sun was just beginning to rise when they locked him in his own jail. Evelyn sat on the edge of the porch, watching the sky bleed pink. Her hand was wrapped in cloth, her lips stitched, her face bruised, but she was whole. Cole stood beside her, chewing on a piece of straw, gaze on the town. "You did it," he said. "No, we did." He gave her a sideways glance. "You gonna stay?" She looked toward the North Hill. "I have a grave to visit. Then, maybe." He nodded. "Town's different now. Might be worth something again." She smiled, small but real. "Might be." And, though neither of them said it, they both knew this wasn't the end, Dot. It was just the next step in the war for the girl who refused to break. The days that followed Sheriff McGraw's downfall felt like waking up from a long fever dream. Pine Rock, once dulled by fear and indifference, began to stir as if remembering how to breathe. Doors stayed open later. Children laughed without, being shushed. And at the center of it all stood the girl who should have been dead. Evelyn walked through the town with her shoulders back and her head high. The bruises on her face had yellowed and faded, but they were still visible, and she didn't bother to hide them. Let the town see what it had ignored. Let them live with it. Cole stayed close, but not too close, never hovering. He understood she needed space to stand on her own now, not in anyone's shadow. They'd been offered a room above the old bakery by Mrs. Finch, who claimed it was high time someone decent slept in it again. Cole fixed the roof. Evelyn helped. Knead dough. It wasn't much, but it was something resembling life. Peace, maybe. Or the beginning of it, not one afternoon. As the sun baked the streets and horses swished their tails against flies, Evelyn returned to the sheriff's office, not as a prisoner, not as prey, but as a witness. The new interim lawman, a wiry man, with graying hair and a badge too big for his coat, handed her another stack of ledgers to review. Pages full of transactions and initials, she now understood. She sat at the desk McGraw once occupied and read until her eyes burned. She circled dates, underlined amounts, and marked names of those complicit. There were many, too many. It was one thing to take down a monster. It was another to clean out the rot he left behind. You don't have to do this. Cole said that evening as they ate dinner on the bakery's stoop. I do, she replied, chewing slowly. Someone has to. His gaze lingered on her for a moment. Then he nodded. All right. They didn't speak of leaving. The idea hovered in the space between them, unspoken but not ignored. The road was still there. So was the ranch land her father had once owned, likely overtaken by desert and debt. But there was work in Pine Rock, not just for coin, but for purpose. Rebuilding the place meant rebuilding themselves. 3 nights later, a commotion stirred. Outside the saloon, a man had ridden in from the neighboring town of Dry Creek with a gun on his hip and trouble in his wake. Claimed he had rights to the land McGraw had sold off, claimed Evelyn's father owed. His kin a debt that never got settled. Cole stepped outside when he heard the yelling. Evelyn followed. The stranger, red-faced and loud, was shouting about land rights and illegitimate heirs, his hand hovering too close to his holster. You got no claim here, Cole said, calm and level. The man squinted at him. You, the law? No, but I've buried men who thought they were above it. Evelyn pushed forward, eyes locked on the man. What's your name? Rufus Kane. My uncle loaned your daddy $1,000 and got nothing but dust and bones in return. My father repaid every debt he ever owed, she said. I know because I rode with him into town when he settled the last one. Then prove it. I have, she said, reaching into her coat and pulling out a folded, yellowed contract she'd recovered from the sheriff's vault, signed and stamped. Paid in full. Rufus's face twisted, but he didn't move for his gun. He snatched the paper, scanned it, cursed under his breath, and threw it into the dirt. This town's changed, he spat. Yes, Evelyn said. It has. He left the next morning. Evelyn watched him ride out with no satisfaction, only the quiet ache of unfinished business. For every Rufus, there would be another. That was the truth of it. Later that day, Cole found her behind the bakery, staring up at the hills where her family's land once lay. The wind tugged at her hair, and her arms were crossed over her chest. Thinking of going back? He asked. Maybe. You'd have to fight for every inch. I already have. He stepped beside her, hands in his pockets. I've got a little land left up by the ridge. Needs mending. Fence posts mostly. You offering me work? He shrugged. Offering you something. She turned to face him, the canyon wind between them. What happens if I say yes? You start over. You get your own boots dirty. You build something. And if I say no, I ride off. No shame. No bitterness. She nodded slowly. You're not like other men. Wasn't trying to be. Her voice dropped. barely above the wind. I don't know if I can love anyone, not after what he did. You don't have to, Cole said. Not now, maybe not ever, but you can still heal. And I'll be there while you do, if you want. That, she didn't answer. She didn't need to. Instead, she picked up a small, flat stone and skipped it across the dry dirt. It didn't go far, but it moved. 2 days later, they packed up the bakery room and loaded the mule. Townsfolk gathered to say goodbye, or good luck, or nothing at all, just nods of respect where once there had been silence. The preacher handed her a leather-bound book of scripture. Mrs. Finch gave her a loaf of bread. A little girl pressed a wildflower into Evelyn's hand and whispered, "I want to be like you when I grow up." Evelyn knelt to meet the girl's eyes. "Be better than me. Be braver sooner." They left as the sun broke the horizon. The road ahead was rough and unfamiliar, but they rode side by side. No more running. No more hiding Dot atop of the ridge. They paused. Below them, a wide stretch of land lay untamed. Grass had started to grow again. The old barn her father built still stood, half collapsed, stubborn as ever. She dismounted and walked toward it, dust rising with every step. Inside, the beams moaned with age, but the foundation held. She placed her palm on one of the walls, rough, solid. "I think this can be home again," she said. Cole walked to the center and looked up at the broken roof. "We'll need nails, timber, hard work. I've done worse." She turned. To him, sunlight in her hair, dirt on her face, and something quiet blooming in her chest that she hadn't felt in months. Hope Dot, it was a strange thing to find in a place soaked with old grief. But there it was. "You still sleep with one eye open?" she asked. "Only when you snore." She laughed, the sound quick and real. It startled her. Cole smiled. They set to work. By midday, the first support beam was hoisted into place. By sunset, they'd cleared the floor and made space for a fire. That night, they slept under a patch of sky visible through the broken roof. The stars watching over them like guardians of something sacred. Evelyn didn't dream of cliffs or screens or fire. She dreamed of a horse, of rain, of her mother's voice humming in the kitchen. She woke to the sound of wind and the smell of coffee. Cole had already started the fire again. "You planning to work today, or just lay there remembering things?" She sat up, rubbing her eyes. "Both." He handed her a tin cup. "That's allowed." For a long moment, she sat in the doorway, a vase, the barn, sipping bitter coffee and watching the sun stretch across the land. There were no fences, no markers, nothing to show who owned what. But in her chest, something had returned. Not the fire, not the fury, something quieter, steadier. The thing they thought they'd lost. She turned to Cole. "We should name this place." He glanced around. "You got one in mind?" She looked out across the land. "Second Wind," he grinned. "Fits." They got to work again, shoulders sore and hearts light. And as the hammer met nail, as walls rose, and the past was slowly buried beneath the weight of their new beginning, Evelyn knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the part where they finally got to write it themselves.